So we're here today at Echo Studios, which is near Buckingham, and we're talking to Jamie Masters, who is the producer, engineer, technician, cleaner, etc. of the facility here. Hi, Jamie.
Hi there.
We've come here to talk to you about a couple of things, and the first thing that we really want to talk to you about is digital technologies and what they've brought in terms of advantages and disadvantages to the studio recording environment. So, firstly, could you tell us some of the advantages of digital technologies?
The main advantage, I would say, initially is the workflow, the speed of work you can get done.
Right. Sure.
These days, the flexibility of most recording systems, particularly in terms of the editing that you can do. Obviously, nowadays on pretty much any computer, you can have a multi-track recording system.
Uh-huh.
So that gives you great benefits compared to what you could do 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
On a tape machine.
So one of the other areas which gives you a potential advantage in digital technologies is the area of file storage and file sharing. Could you elaborate on the ways in which that offers you some advantages?
Certainly. The ease of file sharing, first of all, is a great benefit. Everything here is stored on hard drives, mostly portable, so they're very safe and yet easy to move around.
Sure.
Secondly, on using the web, it's very easy for me to upload files to people. If I've done a mix for someone, I can upload it to them, and they can get it immediately, listen to it, still at very high quality. Alternatively, if people need to get files to me, they can send me files over the web. So because of their digital files, it's very easy to do.
Yeah, sounds like it offers you enormous amounts of flexibility in the workflow there, and adds some additional services and functions that you can offer that perhaps you couldn't have done in the old tape days.
Absolutely. I mean, now, for example, I could easily be mixing a track or an album from a band based in Scotland.
Sure.
And do it entirely remotely.
Yeah.
And just use the internet as a way to send the files and communicate with them.
Brilliant. So with all these advantages, there must be some downsides, some negative areas of digital technology. Could you tell us a little bit about what you perceive some of the negative aspects of it to be?
I think the main negative association with digital recording generally is accepted to be the sound, which has taken quite a long time to meet the standards of good tape recording.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think it's got to the point now where it's more than good enough for what people need to do and what people need to use. The other negative points, I mean, we talked earlier about the flexibility that a digital system allows you. In some ways, flexibility can also be a negative, particularly when you're recording things quite quickly, because often the more flexibility you have, the more decisions need to be made, and if you don't make those decisions, then you can just open yourself up to more and more possible outcomes, which can slow down the creative process, and almost stall it sometimes.
Yeah. So another area we wanted to talk to you about was reflecting on some of the advantages and disadvantages offered by a professional studio like your facility here. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the areas that you feel are strengths for the professional recording studio?
Certainly. The main strength that I think about a professional studio is quite obviously the acoustic spaces within the studio. That's the main thing that you can't get in a home studio or a home environment. Is you rarely get the space, and you almost never get the actual acoustic environment that you need to record things with microphones ambiently.
Sure. And moving on from that, the flexibility of the space seems to automatically appeal to the musician who likes to get their sound out there and into the air. So, for instance, a musician who likes to play acoustic instruments, or perhaps a guitarist who really wants to crank up the volume of their amplifier. That's just something that maybe you just can't expect to do at home in a home recording environment. It doesn't matter what time of the day. Whereas a studio really allows you that flexibility of the space to do what you want.
Absolutely. And you can do crazy things that you could never do at home, partly because you've got the space and you've got the time and obviously the soundproofing to do it. So you can crank up amplifiers. You can, I've heard all sorts of stories about people running around with microphones taped to their head, and obviously setting up drum kits and recording them at a distance without fear of other noises, being captured or interfering. So very important.
So moving on to some of the other reasons that you think a professional studio might offer strengths over a home recording studio.
The main benefit I really think is having an experienced person behind the mixing desk or setting up the microphones, whatever. But having an engineer there who deals with sound every day, or a producer, is an obvious benefit, and it's something that you're unlikely to get unless you go to a proper professional studio.
For sure.
The amount of things. I mean, nowadays you can get some very good equipment very cheaply, and it's relatively cheap to go out and buy a microphone and a small mixing desk and a computer system, and you can record something fairly well. But that doesn't allow for all the potential possible problems that you can run into when recording something with microphones, including all sorts of phase problems and problems with the acoustic you're in, which can all influence the end sound that you will actually capture. Now, an engineer who's been doing it for a number of years will be able to pick up on those things very quickly. He'll be able to know what the problems are. He'll be able to cure them. I think that's a major benefit. A lot of people talk about the equipment, and I don't think there's enough focus on the actual people who are running professional studios, who have trained their ears to know what they're doing, basically.
And what about for a musician, say for instance a band coming into a studio? Are there any advantages to the environment itself, to the way that might work in favour of a group of musicians?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of projects I have, when people come here, they want to do it in a short amount of time, generally as possible. Bands will come in for a week or so, and they will want to spend that time all together creating something themselves. And I think having that creative environment where everyone's there all the time, involved in the whole process, really aids the creativity of it and what and the end result that you get. So I think the atmosphere of a studio, the vibe, if you will, of the place really can add to that.
So one final area that a professional studio seems to offer to a potential recording artist is just the equipment that's available in the studio. I mean, here we can see you've got an enormous control desk here. You've got a range of outboard equipment. You've also got lots of other equipment. I mean, can you just tell us a little bit about that area of things and where you can see the advantages in equipment here?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to invest in equipment as part of a business, as opposed to a home studio, if you're running a commercial studio, I think the equipment is the equipment that you invest in is the best you can possibly afford, best you can possibly buy, and so the quality you will find in a professional studio of the equipment is likely to be a lot better than that in a home studio. So it's not only about the quality, it's also about the variety and the range. I mean, here we've got I don't know, off the top of my head, probably over 20 microphones that we can use on numerous things, and just to have that variety. So if I'm trying out a singer, for example, then I can try 3, 4 or 5 different microphones on their voice to see which sounds best. That immediately gives me advantage over someone who only has one, because if that singer doesn't work particularly well with that microphone, if it doesn't flatter their voice in the right way, then the sound they're going to be capturing is not going to be as good, right off the bat. then going on to that, we've got various mic preamps here, which amplify the sound from the microphone before it goes to tape or to Pro Tools. Obviously, we've got the ones in the desk, but we've also got ones which are their own units. So between those, we've got a lot of flexibility in the sound, even before things get recorded. And then once they're actually recording, coming back from the computer, obviously we can use the effects in the computer program, Pro Tools or Logic or whatever we're using. But we've also got outboard effects, which will again give us more flexibility of sound, give us more scope for what we want to do. And then of course there's the desk itself, which if you a lot of people talk about the summing of various audio in a computer, where it sums lots of different tracks together to make your final mix. A lot of people talk about whether that's detrimental to the actual sound, and whether running it through analog equipment to sum those tracks together can make it sound better. That's primarily what we do here when we mix. We mix through the desk to get the best sound possible. The other thing I should mention is that it's not just about the equipment we've got here, be it the mixing desk or the mic preamps or the microphones, to record. It's also the actual instruments. Here we've got a Hammond organ, a valve Hammond organ, an upright piano. We've got a Fender Rhodes. We've got numerous guitar amplifiers, some of them quite vintage. A Yamaha CP80 piano. Lots and lots of different things which are classics in their own right and have been used for years in recordings. And despite various emulations in software, I don't think any of them come close to capturing the actual sound of the instrument. And apart from anything else, they're great fun to play.
Could you just elaborate on your workflow with the recording and mixing?
Yeah, sure. Everything gets recorded either mostly through the external mic preamps we've got here, which will actually bypass the desk and go straight into Pro Tools usually. If I'm recording more than 5 or 6 different microphones, then I'll start using the mic preamps on the desk as well.
Sure.
Everything will be recorded straight into Pro Tools. And then they'll all be mixed back out of Pro Tools, back through the desk. The computer goes through 3 different interfaces, which changes the sound from digital back to analog, which then goes back into the desk here, through the faders, depending on how many we have going, and then back through, and I mix back into Pro Tools, so I mix back into the same session that I've got on the computer onto a stereo track. And again, it comes back out of the desk and gets turned via the Pro Tools converters from analog back to digital and gets stored on the computer as a digital file. So it's a great big loop between the desk and the computer, really. They're the 2 main things of the system.